Street Fighter V tainted the word accessibility for a decade. For its sake, they removed one-frame links, they introduced the 8-frame delay that make like games more random, so weaker players win more. It's like a theory though. It's not like an advertised thing, and they removed it later. They made links less common in general. Honestly, I can't remember anything else that was intended to make the game more accessible. I can remember tons of stuff that made the game less accessible. Anyway, Street Fighter 6 trailer dropped, and with it a website appeared with some explanation on how the game will be. And actually, yeah, it looks really promising on the accessibility part. Gun the 5 system, welcome the drive system, which I will though call stamina always, because that's what it is. It's a stamina bar. A stamina bar is what I theorize to make a sadistically complex fighting game, but it's 100 times more intuitive than the predecessor. The super meter is now squished into a King of Fighters style meter. I don't know how to think about that, but the UI definitely looks way cleaner in the game overall. No matter. The big accessibility thing is having optional modern controls, where instead of this classical layout with the fucking heavy kick on the right trigger, button combinations of those for stamina actions and motion inputs for specials, we get 3 phase buttons for light, medium and heavy attacks, the 4th special button that without motion inputs produces the specials, built-in macros for drive actions, and an assist button that allows simple combos. And I'm instantly suspicious. It looks like the character only gets 3 normal buttons this way, and we are not set if that's how it works, but if you have to press like another button to use the other set, it would be in opposition to accessibility. Historically, Street Fighter is about using all 6 of your normals from walking forward, backwards or neutral without issue. And straight up ripping 3 normal buttons could be disastrous. Maybe the game is now designed so there is always a set of 3 normals strictly inferior to the other 3, in a way that it's not a significant loss if you strip those away. I would also be fully on board if they committed to just 3 attack buttons for everyone. Street Fighter is often advertised to the players to be significantly different for every iteration, which I don't really agree with, the games look pretty samey, but people insist they are different, so why not commit to a new control scheme? Then we have the assist button. Even slightly serious about the game people always turn auto combos off, and it's not just that they're suboptimal, and not that they often use an additional button held down. It's more that combos are one of the main attraction points in a fighting game. It's the thing people usually specifically want to do, want to learn, and it's actually the main funnel for learning a fighting game right now. Learn the combos, with that you learn your launchers, you know the moves that are used there, you know the moves that could be used there, you know the moves that don't work there because they are useful in other ways. Additionally, Street Fighter doesn't feature particularly long combos. Even the picture shows 4 moves at most, and it's not much, especially without motion inputs. I propose just make them string, like a King of Fighters sort of combo systems that you can't turn off, and from what I know, people like it. No motion inputs. Some people are actually concerned it would make the modern control scheme significantly better, so much as to require the ban on it. To which I say, if it's significantly better, use it. Consider it an ism. It's a choice you can make, and very often in isms and the 5 system from the previous game, the triggers and skills, only one is actually good, and competitive players don't seem to have an issue with that. But yeah, if otherwise there are no advantages to the classic scheme, there would be no reason to use it. And in my opinion, just fucking commit game. You either want people to use motion inputs and then force people to do them, or you want the game to be easy on inputs. Players will accept that. The motion input fans will be forced to understand that simple inputs don't make a character feel completely bland in the hands. They don't make the game that much easier, and they will have to accept that people with common hand disabilities can now actually play the game comfortably and competitively. And if you commit to motion inputs, new players will just accept that the game uses these cool weird inputs because they add this special articulation that can enhance your experience with the game. People outside of fighting game community don't complain about the motion inputs nearly as much as people make it out to be. And the third option, even though I said you can't sit on both chairs, just actually make the control schemes isms. There is this indie game called Motion Sickness that is designed to be a fighting game with sadistically complex motion inputs, to the point that the numpad notation is actually more useful than the adequate notation. and it does surprisingly feature simple control schemes. There is the basic mode with all specials assigned to a button, extremely simple inputs, but moves don't nearly do as much damage as they are supposed to, and a lot of moves are missing. There is the standard mode with more or less regular fighting game controls, like your quarter circles, your half circles, your DPs, etc. Most moves now exist, but just a little bit less reward than possible. And then there is Motion Madness mode, with all the crazy inputs like charge back, half circle forward, DP neutral, quarter circle back, down, to name a few. Lots of moves with perfect variations, failing to do which you get an inferior version of the move. And the goal is to eventually balance things out so all three modes are viable. You would ask how, and the answer is that Motion Madness inputs are ridiculously longer than standard or basic. Lots of room for mistake, and you really don't want to mess up. Motion Madness allows for crazy death combos, but you don't necessarily have the luck to land that hit that leads to a death combo. And Basic has inputs so easy they allow for texts not available to Motion Madness at all. Mir's main move, the command throw, in Motion Madness had the input of DP neutral throw, and you have to do the neutral for like 20 frames. Because of that, you can't really do the throw without testing it out first, just like the pile driver. In turn, the throw allows for a pretty easy death combo, and you can't even jump or break the command throw, you have to duck it, and if you are in the chain throw, you are dead. In standard, it's just DP throw, so you can do it without that much of preparation, although it makes buffering it a bit harder. And in Basic you can still get a sizable combo out of it, but the input is just forward parry, which means you can straight up run in and throw with your best move. That's absolutely ridiculous, that's so OP and I fucking love it. If that's what Street Fighter 6 Modern vs Classic control scheme wants to do, it would be probably the best thing they could do. The lack of normals can be a significant enough punishment if the classic control's motion inputs are really tight. It can be so cool and players from other genres will love it, but that would be too fun. It's obviously not what they're trying to do. They specifically state that if you want full control of the character, play classic. The simple control scheme will be unviable in any way, thus nobody will use it because when asked players will always tell to use classic because it's strictly better, and Capcom gets to put a checkmark for accessibility in the game, and PC port will be just as awful because nobody in Japan has a computer for some reason, they probably code on napkins, I don't know. If I was to design an accessible control scheme, I would do something like this. Just to be clear, we don't know how the game will actually play. Will there be a gradient of special moves, like maybe in Street Fighter 6 they are all the same. The same problem is with the X moves, overdrives. We just don't know if they are going to vary between the combinations. But here we go. First we get all 6 normal buttons. And the important part, we don't have normal button on a trigger. If you don't know why trigger is a problem, then I put throw on either light punch light kick or medium punch medium kick. People see that in other games, and it's an easy button combination on the controller, and because Capcom insists that a controller only has 8 usable buttons, I have to compromise. And instead of throw that they put on the left trigger in the original, I put the drive parry there. Why? Well, basically because you don't want any car cancelling issues when performing the parry. I remove the assist button and change it for the special move button. The idea is that you can still do dragon punches of 3 various degrees, but forward special is assigned to one of them, and if you need to, you can use it. I think it's the main acceptable way to have all the functions that game wants us to use on a pad controller comfortably. You might say it's just like regular controls with some restructuring, it's not really modern. And that's the fucking point! Just have the layout optimized for the controller. That's what makes it modern. Just simple restructuring goes a long way towards accessibility. Just like the stamina bar is put right here, at the top, where you can always see that, is so much more accessible than the 5 bar that is in the corner, like it's super fucking small. You can't really see it if you're a new player all the time, and it's not really that useful. We have to optimize for the controller, because most people play either on a controller or on a keyboard. Asking for an arcade stick for everyone is directly, by definition, opposite of accessible design. And since I mentioned keyboards, I want to talk about them too. I won't, but I won't, because the video is getting way too long for me to edit it down before Street Fighter 6 even releases. So yeah, no section for that, but here's it's on the screen, yeah. It's just the point of accessibility is not to have everything stripping down. The point is to make functionality of the game intuitive enough for everyone to be able to do the same things without issue. By default, you are going to have to leave some people out. Some people are also concerned that charge inputs are going to be really unfair with the one-button specials. And while yes, if otherwise it's the same character, it would be unfair. And if the game goes the motion sickness ways, it would be a major consideration point. But there is a very simple fix. Here is the original input. Change the kick with the special button. And just remove the up. That's it. I really don't understand why charge inputs never do this. In conclusion, Street Fighter 6 did about the worst thing they could do about accessibility of the controls, at least for all we know right now. It made both styles exist, with one obviously inferior to the other. You have to commit. Either you make controls this simple and force the implications, or you stay true to the legacy and just have quality of life improvements. Or you do both, and make them distinct enough that both are viable and fun. But you can't just slap together a checklist setup just to claim that the game is accessible. Please share your own opinion of Street Fighter 6 modern control scheme in the comments. I read every one of them. Goodbye.